Good morning. We are live. I am in Birmingham. We'll wait for people to hop on. Don't worry, you will not be looking at me the whole time. Hey, Sunny, first one to hop on, go figure. I hope you're having a good morning. Happy you're here. Tanya Terry, lovely. Happy you're here too. That's fun. There's Chris Greenman. Okay, all our friends are here. Hope y'all are having a wonderful Saturday. I am in Birmingham in Gary Chapman's studio, and he will be our featured artist today on Local Artists Live. We've got an hour special. He will be our only feature this month, so we're going to really hone in on his work, let him just kind of take us around the studio, and then he's going to give us a special treat, a little snowflake demo, which I know some of you already have an idea about that, and others of you, if you have no idea why we would be doing paper snowflakes on Local Artists Live, trust me, hang on for it. It's very cool. I'm very happy you are all here, and I'm going to stop talking now and switch it over to Gary. So, there he is.
Good morning. Thanks for being here. My name's Gary Chapman. I'm an artist and professor of painting and drawing here at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. We're in my studio, and so maybe the first thing to do is maybe to get up and walk around and show you the space a little bit. I spend a lot of time here. Of course, I have my loft downtown where I live, but if I'm not there, I'm either teaching at UAB, which is just a 2-day-a-week schedule, which is really nice because we benefit greatly by that. We have lots of time to put into our research, which in my case is making paintings. So yeah, my studio is my second home. So let's get up and walk around and see that. I guess the first thing I'd point out is I have a garage door, which is really excellent for loading and transporting work, and some of my work is pretty big, so that's been a real advantage. I've been in this studio for about 7 years. Before that, I was on the second floor without an elevator, so it proved quite interesting, but I love this space. We are right on the edge of UAB's campus, but we're on the opposite side of our side. We're on the medical side in a warehouse, and so most of my students don't even know where we are. All the faculty have studio spaces in this building. It's part of our expectations with research, and it's just about 12 blocks from my loft, and it's about 12 blocks from where I teach, so it's really proven to be ideal. The garage door, all my wood. This is basically sort of my shop area. I do a lot of construction, a lot of woodworking. I build all my own frames and stretcher bars. And so this is a lot of where the construction goes on, all my tools, my door. We can segue over here into, this is kind of my workstation where I do all my computer work. And then if I have guests over, I have an area to sit around and lounge. And, you know, when you're in the studio all day, sometimes you want to take a nap.
Yeah.
Or just get away from it for 10 or 15 minutes. Of course, I have a light table over there, my stereo, and a little kitchenette.
Nice.
This is another important workbench for me. I do a lot of flat work up here. And that segues over to the door, which goes out into the hallway. Like I said, there are 9 studio faculty, so we each have spaces here in this building. And here's one of my primary painting walls, and back to where we were. In the studio, you're going to see some work. This large piece here is Woman, or Woman. It's one of 9 pieces from my conversation series. They all start with an iconic image that starts a conversation about whatever that particular painting is about. This one is about gender issues and the pressures upon being a woman. I'm a father of a young woman, so a lot of my work, some of my work is centered around that basic idea.
I'm going to take a moment and do some close-ups.
Sure.
This is really beautiful.
So the female torso is actually from a Graham sculpture. He did the gates for the 1984 Olympics in LA.
Okay.
And she was quite a controversial figure because at the gates where you go into the stadium, there's the male and female torso for the 1984 Olympics.
Okay.
And critics said that he had extremely masculinized the woman.
Okay.
and he had a simple response back and simply said, "Have you ever seen a female volleyball player?" And my paintings at various stages of my career have really dealt with the idea of femininity and female beauty. And of course, that is a perfect segue back to the Montgomery Museum piece, Mutter and Tochter.
Yes.
That theme comes up with me quite a bit, being a husband and a father to a young girl. My work is very cathartic, and so I also often deal with very personal issues, but I hope there are also issues that can be seen as universal. That segues back to my newest series, which is the Noir series. I tend to vacillate back and forth between color and black and white, and between large and small. And I really wanted to do a small work and a series of small paintings. And so this is my Noir series. Noir, the masculine spelling of the French word black. And so it's a black series, black on black. And it's just flirting with all those elements that we think of film noir, which is sort of dark and sexy, but a little bit lethal, alluring, seductive, but always slightly skeptical. And so it plays with implements of violence, but also of beauty and flowers and whatnot. 8 of them are finished, and I'm still working on the last 4. They all have sort of an Art Deco border that's hand done, and they're all on aluminum panels. They're kind of hard to photograph because of the sheen. The 8 that are finished have been varnished.
Can y'all hear Gary okay? I'm getting kind of away from him to look at these, and I just want to make sure you can hear the artist talking. Thanks, Gary.
And so each one is just titled Noir. That one is called Noir Lily. And there's a Gerber daisy and a rose, a spider lily. This is the spider lily.
Anybody who's watching knows that I went a little crazy when I saw these. I got very excited about the flowers.
And they're not just oil. They're oil, graphite, and some mixed media on top of aluminum panels. And of course they're with the Art Deco border, and then they're placed inside a hand-built shadow box frame. And Laura's about to come up on the Venus flytrap.
Yes. And I love it. Can you talk to me about what's hanging down above?
Yeah, those are, I've used that as a symbol throughout paintings, for over a decade. I think of them as counting stones.
Okay.
They're like marbles that are threaded onto a string. So an ancient type of counting. And my work often deals with accountability, responsibility, and keeping track, keeping on track. And so it's just sort of a subtle way of suggesting order.
Very cool.
Of course, that's a stalk of wheat.
Thank you, Gary.
Sure.
All right, so you were saying
And
this
so these
is...
are borders. I've now finished the borders, and I'm ready for the painting inside. They are aluminum on wooden panels, so the aluminum is mounted to the wood. I have a good friend who's an amazing pinstriper, and so when I start doing work like this, I'm thinking about all the stuff that Michael Swan does at Barber Motorsports. He's the key pinstriper for all their motorcycles, and he goes to motorcycle conventions and rallies all over the country and does pinstriping. Pretty amazing.
Cool.
So Laura and I were talking about how we're going to keep everybody busy for an hour in my studio. As you can see, it's a good-sized studio, but I don't know that we can spend an hour walking around. About 8 or 9 years ago, I started cutting snowflakes on this crazy little whim. It was obviously the fall quarter. It was coming to an end in November, December. I was sitting at my desk with nothing to do. I think I was in between classes. And I just started cutting a snowflake, a silly 4-sided snowflake. And I cut a couple of them, and I thought, what am I going to do with these? So I took them over to my buddy's desk and put him on his desk, just to surprise him. And about an hour later, he came back to me and he threw the snowflakes on my desk and he says, "Gary, snowflakes have 6 points." The audacity. So I sort of researched it. Well, how do you make a 6-point snowflake? And of course, I found it online and found the way to fold it. And I cut a few snowflakes, and just something clicked in my head. And a lot of us artists are obsessive compulsive anyway. We're just looking for something to kind of like occupy our time. And I'm especially aware of that, like when I'm at home, I sometimes wish I was in my studio painting or something. And so I like to find things to occupy my time when I'm at home watching movies or whatnot. And so I just set about the goal to cut 500 snowflakes between Thanksgiving and Christmas, a ream of paper. And I've been doing that now for about 8 years. It's pretty popular on Facebook. I lay them out on my billiard table and count them off by billiard tables. And it's evolved into this workshop thing. I go to schools all around the Birmingham area to do workshops with high school students. And then it's gotten into corporate meetings, and it's just crazy, private parties. It's a nice way to make a little bit of money, but I think the thing about snowflakes that's so fascinating to me is that it's one little tiny piece of paper folded a very precise way. There's only about 4 inches of area to work, and yet once you accept the limitations, the possibilities are endless. Every snowflake is different, bidding on just a slight turn or a different angle. And so that kind of becomes a challenge in my mind. I sit there with a blank and I think, what have I not done before? What kind of cut could I do? And still maintain the structure of the snowflake. So we can pan out here and see, these are some black snowflakes. Every year a theme sort of pops up. And about 2 years ago, I started doing some black snowflakes, and I wasn't sure how people would respond to them. But for the most part, people think of them as being really elegant. The bulk of my snowflakes are white, though. The black has just been so popular now that I've just incorporated into part of the process. We're going to be cutting some snowflakes today, and I'm going to show you my process and hopefully get you all cutting snowflakes. So if you don't already have some 8.5 by 11 white paper and a good pair of scissors, you don't want tiny scissors, you want a good size standard sharp scissor, and I'll teach you how to cut some snowflakes.
All right, so everybody take this moment, go get scissors if you have them, and you said 8.5 by 11 paper?
Yes, regular old standard photocopy paper. And another nice thing that I've been doing, I have a long history with Children's Hospital, and I've gone to Children's Hospital and done workshops, and I take them snowflakes to give to the patients and the nurses and whatnot. So I find venues, I just give them away, and it's sort of a fun little obsession, a way to keep active at night while I'm watching movies. I'm a big movie buff, and yeah.
All right, we're going to transition to Gary demoing now.
Cool.
So hopefully if you have your scissors and paper ready. And Gary, I'm going to give you the phone for a second so I can get that set up.
Okay.
If you want to, do you want it on you or no?
I'll do it on me, and then I'll just move it around. Oh, I see.
Yep. There you are.
There we go. Hello. Let's see if I know any names out there. Anyway, so this is my table where we're going to be working. I'm sitting here in the studio. You've already seen that, but I'm going to give you some context here. I'm going to grab my paper. We're just getting set up.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. And will y'all let me know that you can still hear okay? I want to make sure the sound is still good. All right, let's see. Zoom in on your hands a little bit too.
Perfect.
Come on. You almost got it.
Okay, so in order to cut a good snowflake, the first thing you have to learn is how to create a blank.
There we go.
So this is called a blank. It's all done from 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I've only done one cut at this point. So let me show you how to do that. So you take a piece of paper in its horizontal orientation, grab either bottom corner and pull that up and marry what was the side to the top. And the more precise your folds, the better. We're going to rotate off of that point, get that all lined up, marry that line, and hard press it. Real simple. Just any art teachers will know this is the way to make a square. In fact, that's our next step. we want to just follow along that line and cut that off. I call that the tail. This is a real common series of folds that a lot of you will be familiar with. And one thing you can make with these folds is an airplane, and this ends up being the tail. That's why I refer to that as a tail. But for us today, this is just scrap. So for every snowflake I make, I end up with one of these. There's how many snowflakes I've made so far this season. These become my grocery lists. And so now we've got a pyramid that's open on both sides. We simply want to fold that in half. And so we want to be as precise as we can to line up our folds. Crease it. So once again, there's the big pyramid. We simply fold that in half. And again, crease it really nice. And now we end up with another pyramid. This is the hardest fold. At my workshops, I have to have a few people trained to do this so we can walk around and help everybody with it. But what we have now is a pyramid that has an open side and a closed side. I like to work from the open side because there you've got 4 layers of paper that you can keep together. These tend to slip around a lot. And again, you want to keep everything lined up and precise for our cuts. So I'm getting ready to do a fold. I'm spending a lot of time with this because it's a little tricky. Where we've been folding everything in half, we now want to fold this in thirds. So here's our pyramid. That's the top of the pyramid. That's going to be the center of our snowflake. I like to think about that. That's the center of our snowflake. This is our open end, and I'm now going to rotate off of this point, the top of our pyramid, the center of the snowflake. I'm going to rotate off of that. Let's go this way. I'm going to rotate off of that center point, and I'm going to try to bring it to about 1/3. And you'll know if you've got it right when you fold this over if everything lines up. And look at that. That is perfect. So let's go back through that again. There's my pyramid. There's my open end. I'm going to fold it up to about 1/3. Bring this over and make sure everything's creased down nice and tight. And there's our blank. Just like I showed you, we wanted to make a blank. Okay, so now that we've got a blank, and I'll go back through that again if we need to. You can start asking questions. But now that we've got a blank, we've got 2 sides. We have this side that has a straight line and a diagonal line, and we have this side that just has a diagonal line. We want to flip over to the straight line, and we will cut right along that line, and I like to say we're cutting off the ears. That is truly scrap too. So we just get rid of the ears. And now we've got a blank that's ready to cut a snowflake. Now, before we start cutting though, it's really beneficial to understand the anatomy of a snowflake. I like to say this is a piece of pizza or a piece of pie. And we not only have 1 piece of pizza, we have 2, we have 3, we have 6, we have 12 pieces of pizza. So for every cut you make over here, you're making that for 6 parts of the snowflake, and every cut over here, you make it for 6 parts of the snowflake. You're cutting through 12 layers of paper. So you want some good sharp scissors. And here's a trick when we start cutting. We want to cut from way back here in the scissor. A lot of people will try to do these little tiny snippets, and you have no strength out there. You've got lots of strength down in here. Okay, so now that we know the anatomy of a snowflake, the first cut, or the first series of cuts are the most important because they determine the shape of the snowflake. Whatever cut I do from this corner to that corner is going to create the shape. So let me just start with one. There's my open end. I'm going to put those 2 points together, and I'm just going to make an arbitrary cut straight down, but not go out. And then I'm going to make a second cut from the other point. What I'm doing is I'm getting rid of the square line because we don't want any square edges, outer edges on our snowflake. I'm going to make 3 cuts. I'm going to go down, not quite meeting my cut. Then I'm going to do a third cut and go to there. And what I've done now is I've established the shape of my snowflake. Let me show you what I mean. As I open that up, we've got that, we've got that, and we've got that, and it goes on. Every cut I do now is going to be the interior. Let's look at a snowflake here. Oops, making everybody seasick. So there's my blank. Actually, this cut is very similar from the previous one. I did down, in, and out, and that created the shape of my snowflake. And then all these other cuts are what's happening from the side, in and out, in and out. In fact, that's one way to think of this. Traveling down this line make cuts in and back out, and they can be curved cuts, straight cuts, all kinds of cuts. They can be deep cuts, but you always have to come back out on that side, and you want to preserve some of this edge all the way down because that's the hinge. That's the hinge that connects side to side. So let's just start cutting, and maybe this will make sense. I'm going to go into this little pyramid, and I'm gonna preserve that hinge right there, but I'm going to cut in, and then I'm going to cut in, and I'm going to pull that out. After you cut 3 or 4 of these, you got an idea what it's going to look like even before you open it. But let's just go ahead and open that again. So now we're starting to work our way into the snowflake. And cut in. I like to cut close to my previous cuts because that means there's going to be less paper. And the less paper, the more elegant looking the snowflake is, the more detail. Well, gotta cut a little more. There we go. See where we're heading? Okay, so I got this big side over here. What do we want to do over here? I'm going to do a cut up and then rotate around and down. And then I'm going to come over here and meet it. Now we've chopped out a nice big hole.
Gary, Tara just joined.
Oh, good. Hello, Tara. She's done this before. Let's see. Then we're going to reach in here, cut up next to that line, cut up. And I tend to do that. I tend to work from side to side, back and forth, working my way down to the point. Every now and then I'll do the opposite just to see if I get something a little bit different. I've got a big hinge here. I still got plenty of area there. As long as I line these two things up, I can make another cut in here. Which again, the tighter and closer your cuts, the more intricate the snowflake's going to be. What did I do there? There we go. Now I'm going to come over here. I want to preserve that hinge. I'm going to cut in and around. So when I do these workshops, I actually have a PowerPoint, and it kind of covers several of the years I've been cutting snowflakes, and it walks you through multiple billiard tables full of snowflakes, but also some of the themes. One year I did animals and bugs. Sometimes I do images or text. There's one year I did snowflakes of war. Oops, sorry about that. And then I'm going to... so now we're getting down to the tip of the snowflake. I always like to cut the tip off, which reveals some kind of hole in the snowflake. You don't want all that solid paper in the center. So you got to find some way to work your way down the tip. And that is the other cut where you can actually go from one side to the other. So I'm going to cut and cut that off. Now, you think you're done, but this is one of the most important parts of making a snowflake, and that is unfolding it. People are so anxious to open it, they just start opening it, and then they just got this wad of paper. It's a mess. What you need to do is come to the edge of the table, and for every fold that you open, you have to counterfold it. And I like the edge of the table to do that. So I start to open it, I see where it's creased, and I crease it back. This is really important, or the snowflake will be almost unusable. And then I open up the next layer, and I crease it back. And then I open the next layer, and I crease it back. And then the last, crease it back. There we go. It's our first snowflake.
Beautiful.
So I've got a bunch of blanks here, a bunch of ones that I've already cut. Here's a fun one. Let's open this one. So fold it back. So those of you that are sort of sticking with me and you understand the concept of the pizza pie and how every cut's being done 6 times, we can look at this and see what kind of cuts I made to make that shape. This is a mirror image of that. So what did I do? I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't start by making those tiny cuts. I made a big cut to create that shape, and then I cut out, and then I cut back in, and then I cut back out. So basically I did 1, 2, 3, 4 cuts. Then I went into the shape and I went in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, back out. And that's what created that shape. And then I did all my interior cuts. So let's open this one up. And so you can see all my cuts are relatively close together. Here we get some thick paper, but then we open that up. It's so weird not being able to hear you guys. I'm wondering if there are any questions or if you guys are already well past me and got your 4th snowflake done.
No one has asked anything yet, but that's a good reminder that if y'all want to ask Gary anything, we are here. So please type in your comments, and I will read it to him.
I can always go back through creating the blank. Again, I've got all these sort of different ones cut so that you can see. And again, that's the thing I like about Snowflakes, I guess, is that I'm just amazed that with just a tiny piece of paper and a pair of scissors, and really the piece of paper that you initially started on is about, 4 inches? And it seems like an incredibly limiting process, and yet the results are endless. And that's the challenge to me, is just a lot of my snowflakes will start looking a little bit similar, and so then the challenge is, well, what kind of cut have I never made before? One of the things I'd like to point out is, as I said, you're strongest cutting way back here in the center of the scissors. And to cut an arch, a curve, the trick is to cut and rotate at the same time. And that way you'll make a really nice smooth cut. See how I do that? Just rotate and cut at the same time. Now I can come in here and meet up with that and pop that out. And then do I want to do another series of branches, or do I want to do something really different? Let's go down here and come and do that.
Gary, my friend and amazing artist, Sunny Polk, just said that she is too busy butchering this paper to ask any questions.
Too busy butchering. So let's do one of these fringe ones. Let's do, watch this. I'll cut in and back in to meet it. Pull that out. In and go in to meet it. Pull that out. In to beat it. And we can get at least 1 or 2 more in there. Now we still have all this thick paper running along this edge. And if we open that up, it's just too bland. There's just nothing going on in there. We got lots of room to cut stuff out. As long as we're really careful, we keep these 2 things lined up, we can come in quite close. And I'm just going to cut a little hole out of the tip. Now we still got all this down here. Let's do this. Let's cut in, but not come all the way out. Oops. And then I'm going to come up here and make a little centerpiece for that flower.
That's cool.
So it's like that. We still have this whole side to go, plus all down here. We got lots of cutting to do. I tend to follow my cuts. In other words, I probably tend to go in and follow that line and then follow that line back out. But let's do something a little different. Let's follow in and then curve out. And then let's create another one of those little center tips that I don't have names for these, so I'm kind of making up my terminology. But now we got that little center shaft that runs up inside there. And we still have all this up in here to cut into. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to cut up. See how I'm cutting way back there in my scissors? Again, you're cutting through 12 layers of paper. I do a lot of high school workshops. I've done a few middle school workshops. About 6th grade, I find, is about the youngest because you're cutting through, like I said, 12 sheets of paper. There is a 4-sided snowflake that I can do with elementary kids. Not that elementary kids can't have really strong hands, but for the most part, it's quite difficult. Okay, so I'm getting down to the end. I still have this hinge running all the way up and down here. That's a lot of paper. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to cut real close and down. And then I'm going to cut this out. And then I still have my tip and I'm going to cut that out. let's see what we got. Again, the most important part of making a snowflake is opening it. So for every fold, for every time I open it, I want to counterfold it so that it'll go flat. Oh, look at that big thick area right there. I'd like to do something with that. I'm going back in. I need to cut something right out of that little area there. Like I said, I don't like too much paper in my snowflake.
Just so you know, the snowflake is getting a lot of heart reactions.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. People are very excited about it.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to give this to Laura, and she can take it back to Montgomery with her then.
Oh, wow.
Counterfold it. And there we go.
That's beautiful.
How much time do we have, Laura?
We've got plenty of time.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually have just about 28 minutes.
Okay. So let me, just on the case that some of you are a little overwhelmed, let's do a really simple snowflake. I'm going to cut, and please start asking questions, but let me run us through this one snowflake, and we'll stop and see if there's a question and answer period. Cutting the ears off. I'm going to do what is actually a rather pretty snowflake, but a really quite simple one. It's going to look a little bit like this one. That's just a series of deep cuts. Remember, again, that when I do the workshop, I love to have a table out and somebody will come up with a blanket and say, show me how to cut that snowflake. And we'll lay it on there and say, okay, you can see the silhouette, you can see the shape of the snowflake. Let's do this. Let's get this out of our way. I'm going to cut from, I like to cut from the tip, not from in here. Otherwise, you'll leave some of that straight paper. And again, none of my snowflakes will have a straight line on the outer edge. So let's go like this. Let's cut deep inside. And then come back out here and go back and meet that. Oops, I keep doing that. And then I'm going to go in here and cut down. And then I'm going to go back here and cut and meet it.
We had a request for you to show the folding process again.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
And there. And then I'm going to come over here and meet it. And now, again, all the cuts we've done, all that we've done is determine the shape of the snowflake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cuts. And the shape of our snowflake is going to look like that. So then, arbitrarily, just decide where to cut along this edge, always retaining some points to retain a hinge. I'm going to cut down and cut in. Oops, I did it again. I'm going to cut down.
I'll figure out a better system next time.
And then I'm going to cut around. Oh, I'll show you a little something we're going to do for this one to make it different than any of the others I've done so far. We're going to cut in here. Cut down. I'm going to cut a little one right there. And let's go ahead and cut the tip off. I feel like there's no such thing as cheating in snowflakes. So I have a series of hole punches.
Nice.
This one is a punch with a heart in it. And so I'm going to place a heart right up there. And I want to place that same heart. Well, sometimes getting in there is a little tricky. Let's put an upside down heart this way. Well, here, we can put one in easily. And then we can open up. And let's put some in here. And here. And these hole punches you can get at any Office Depot kind of store. And there's that one.
Wow.
Okay, so somebody asked to go through the fold again. Let's do that. So we take our paper, place it in a horizontal format, and take either bottom edge, bring that up to marry the side edge with this top edge, rating off that point. You want to line this up perfectly and crease it hard. So, real simple fold. Take the paper, fold it up. You're basically creating a square here, and this is excess paper. So we want to cut that off. We just follow along that line. And then we've got a pyramid, open on both sides. We want to take that pyramid and fold it exactly in half. So again, pyramid, fold it in half. Line it up perfectly. This is the tricky fold. So we've got a pyramid, we have an open end, and we have a closed end. I like to take the open end, this here, and rotate off that center point of our snowflake. Everything's going to line up to that point. So I'm going to take these two sides, I'm going to keep them together, and I'm going to attempt to fold this at 1/3. So I've got to line up to that point right there. That's about 1/3. You'll know if you've got it right when you fold this over, if everything lines up. I could adjust that a little bit. So we're going to go there. And now, pretty much perfect. So let's look at that again. You've got that small pyramid. I like to grab the open side of the pyramid, rotate off the tip to 1/3, then down to meet it, and there you've got a blank. Somebody asked me a question. Now you're ready to cut the ears off. And now you're ready to create a snowflake.
Cool. All right, guys. So hop in. We can keep doing snowflakes if you want, but you didn't ask any questions during the little studio tour either. So if there's anything you want to ask about Gary's painting process or any particular work of art that you saw when we were walking around, just let me know. And I will say, Gary, that earlier someone named O'Reilly Art said, I love the tip about how to unfold. And hi, Gary.
Hello. O'Reilly. That's the thing. My friends have these funny names on Facebook and Instagram, and so half the time I don't even know who they are.
And then Dear Tanya Terry asked who taught you how to do this. So you can.
I don't think anybody. I mean, you know, we all cut snowflakes when we were little. So, I mean, I clearly had that background. But I think if I remember right, the snowflakes I cut back then, I'm sure, were the 4-pointed ones. I told the story early on about how I cut a few 4-pointed snowflakes for a friend, and he shamed me in saying that snowflakes have 6 points. So I do remember going online and figuring out how to create a 6-pointed snowflake. And then it just kind of went off from there. You know, it's like anything. You get bored with it, and you either stop or you force yourself to do something completely different. And like I said, I like to keep busy. I'm a bit obsessive compulsive. And when I'm at home watching movies or the news, I'm usually cutting snowflakes, at least between Thanksgiving and Christmas anyway. You guys can see where I'm going with this one, right? Because, you know, remember, as you cut one side, you're creating the mirrored side on the other, so we're making a Christmas tree.
Cool.
So.
And O'Reilly Art is Kat from Aeromont.
Oh, of course, Kat. Oh, my gosh. She took a charcoal workshop with me many years ago. As I remember it, she's a high school teacher.
Okay. Okay.
And she did one of the most amazing things. We part of the charcoal workshop is to create grounds, just one part of it. And Kat did the very wise thing. She did lots and lots and lots of little tiny drawings, knowing that she could go home and duplicate them and make them much larger. But she wanted to make as many different examples for her students. And I always really admire that. She and I have kept relatively active on Facebook.
She also asked, when you cut an image, do you do any drawing first?
Okay, so each year in my boredom, I start doing something a little different. I haven't done that this year, though. One year I cut animals and bugs. Another year I got obsessed with words. And I've got a PowerPoint that shows snowflakes over the many years. And one year I did snowflakes of war. Some of those really intricate ones, I'll do a really simple silhouette drawing on the outside just to kind of make sure I'm heading in the right direction. And I think we're going to be able to share that PowerPoint on the Montgomery Museum website. Laura and I are going to work on that.
Yeah, we're going to try.
It'll be fun to look at because you'll see lots of a lot of possibilities beyond just simple geometric patterns. Because you're dealing with anything symmetrical, you can create a snowflake as long as it's not too detailed. And so, as I remembered, I have English bulldogs and pronghorn. There are bees and hornets and snow owls and just all kinds of little creatures. Okay, I'm going to cut along this. I've done very little cutting on this side of the snowflake. And so this Christmas tree is a really simple example of how if you're dealing with something symmetrical, again, you only have to cut half of its shape. And so if I were cheating and I wanted to draw, I could have drawn this out down here, knowing that I'm going to get the shape from the other. Now, the one thing about this snowflake is I got this long edge, and I could leave it, which would preserve the Christmas tree like that, but that's just too much paper. So I'm going to go inside here and do something. So I'm going to fold it back up. Fold it back up this way. And let's at least get rid of some of this stuff down here. And let's open it up from there and see if we want to do some sort of hole punch. So again, most important part of a snowflake is opening it, and that's creasing it on the edge. Every time you open a layer, counter crease it on the edge of the table. And that way it'll go nice and flat for you. Otherwise you just end up with a snowball. And there we go.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gary.
Sure. Any requests? Anything?
Snowflake
It would be awesome is if some of you are cutting snowflakes, if somehow you can send us an image of them. Can they do that? Can they upload a?
Let me think about that. I guess if they...
So we can't see their faces.
Well, if
like
they
a
are
Zoom.
cutting them, they could request to be in this, and we could split the screen. I think that works. I've never done it before, but we could try it.
Interesting.
Sunny, do you want to try that? Do you want to request to be in this and show us some of your butchering?
Put her on the spot.
Tanya Cherry says somehow mine doesn't look as good as yours.
They will. You guys, seriously, if you've not done this before, the first couple snowflakes are always a little awkward. You're really getting used to the anatomy of a snowflake and knowing how close you can make your cuts. I tell people you've got to cut 3 or 4 snowflakes before you start really understanding it and then starting to explore it. Don't give up. The main thing is just trying to I squeeze the paper pretty tight to hold it. That keeps it from shifting around all those layers. And if it shifts around, then you're not going to have accurate cuts and things are going to be all cattywampus. So that goes back to folding a really precise blank, then holding it all together as you cut, squeezing everything. I'm squeezing pretty hard to keep it from shifting around in the scissors. Let's get up one of my workbenches. I've got a star here. Oh, wrong place, no wonder. I've got a lot of paper up there though, so let's cut a shape in there. Let's cut around that star.
It seems that the consensus is that people might need better scissors.
Yeah. Good scissors are important. These aren't anything special. I got them at Hobby Lobby, Westcott Titanium. Yes, good scissors are important. Sharp and sturdy. You don't want tiny scissors. You would think you want delicate scissors, but you just can't get enough leverage to cut through all that paper. Okay, let's turn it around, start working down this side. Let's cut around.
Tanya Terry, I see your question. Thank you so much for saying that you're enjoying this and asking when our next in the series is. So this is a special treat. We do normally have Local Artists Live just for 30 minutes twice a month, so every other Saturday. And this winter, we, since, Christmas is coming up, we are only doing one for 1 hour. And Gary Chapman is a special feature for us because he's not just an amazing artist, but he's also someone whose art we have in the collection at the museum in Montgomery. But I will keep you tuned, Tanya Terry, to maybe if we have Gary come do a snowflake workshop at the museum.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That's what I'm thinking about. And I see that my mom has joined, which means that my daughter, Flora Eloise, is watching. Flora, what do you think about these cool snowflakes? They are so neat, aren't they?
How old is
she? Is 4 years old.
4. Oh, well, we'll have to come up with a project for her too then. Where would you like to go now?
Well, we have a little under 10 minutes left, so if you want to, let's see, I'll pull this out of here. And if anybody wants to ask any questions directly to Gary about really anything, so ask him about his art, or you can just ask him.
The Montgomery Museum's been very good to me over the years. Not only purchasing Mutter and Tochter for the museum, which I love having her there. I'm very fortunate to have paintings in museums, really kind of throughout the Southeast, but it's always nice because Mutter's always there. Many of the other museum, even the Montgomery Museum cycles its collection, but for some reason they keep her out all the time, and I just love that. And I've told the story about the painting many a times, and you guys have a little QR code that you can hear the story, but I love that painting is there, and I love hearing stories about people's reaction. I hear that people almost always respond. They either love it or hate it. And I think that's what good art's about. I think good art should offer some sort of provocation. It's not a stop sign that you drive up to, read it, and leave it, and then never think about it again. Art is something deeper, and I think that's my goal, is to somehow make work that's memorable beyond standing in front of it.
That's fantastic. And honestly, that would be a really great way to end. But so before we do, I will say, if anybody does have any questions about any of the art that Gary has here in his studio, take advantage of the moment. I'll wait a minute, and then I think we might
little early, but that's okay. I will say, I told you I wasn't going to prompt you, but you didn't say anything about where you're from or how you got to Alabama.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm going to make you.
Okay. So I was born in Xenia, Ohio, just outside of Dayton. Wow. I woke up this morning with the news of all the tornadoes all over Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Missouri. It's just horrible. I was born in Xenia, Ohio, and the same thing happened in April 3rd, 1974. A superstructure went through the entire southeast, Midwest, and Xenia was the big one. It wiped the city out. And so I'm feeling for a lot of people today and thinking about them. I grew up in Xenia, Ohio. I went to Berea College in Kentucky. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to afford college, and my mother and a graduate of Berea who knows about how special Berea College is was able to get me in there. It's tuition free. Everybody works on campus. It's run by the students. It's a really amazing concept.
Wow.
And a great institution. And then after Berea, I went to Cranbrook for my MFA. I moved to the East Coast because I wanted to be near New York, but not in New York. I lived in Philly for a year, and I lived in Baltimore for 3 years, all the while applying for teaching positions. And I landed the job at UAB in 1990. So I've been there 31 years now. UAB's been very good to me. It's a fantastic research institution. They afford me the studio, and I, in large part, whatever success I've had, I attribute it to being at UAB and their support. So I came here in 90. I've been here 31 years, and I think Mutter was purchased in 98, I think, somewhere around there.
That sounds accurate.
I created her in 93 for my solo exhibition at UAB. She went down for an exhibition that was curated at the Montgomery Museum called Chiaroscuro, and Margaret Lynn liked the piece so much, but she said they didn't have the money to buy it. Could they keep it for a year? And I'm like, well, yeah. So she kept it for a year, and still they weren't sure how to buy it. And Margaret and Mark came up to my studio and said, we want to give you a solo exhibition. We want to use it as sort of the driving force to rally the money to buy Mutter and Tochter. And I did a solo exhibition. Gosh, I don't remember what year that was at the Montgomery Museum. But out of that, the piece was purchased. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
I will find out. I'm going to ask Margaret Lynn.
Okay.
Very cool. Thank you for that
bet.
background. And so we are going to wrap up. We've got a lot of people have commented, so they enjoyed making snowflakes.
Cool.
They're going to keep practicing. And thanking you for this.
And we'll figure out how to get the PowerPoint onto the Montgomery Museum page.
Yes, we will.
Awesome.
And also, will you share your website with everybody?
Yes, my website is GaryChapmanArt.com. Pretty easy.
That's simple enough.
GaryChapmanArt.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Gary. This has been such a pleasure.
Yeah,
and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Stay tuned to mmfa.org for upcoming programs. If you are in Montgomery, please come out. Here, poor Gary. I'll get you off screen. Y'all, please come out this Tuesday, December 14th, for our new second Tuesday's installment. So the new series, we're trying to make the MMFA the place to be on Tuesday evenings, the second Tuesday of every month. So come out after hours. We start programs for all ages are happening, kind of staircase throughout the evening. So come out Tuesday, December 14th. There will be air dry clay activity with Joe Taylor for all ages, but obviously that's kind of geared more towards youth. There will be a really awesome program with some Montgomery River Region authors and English literature educators who will be reading in the Leslie Dill Wilderness exhibition. That program's called Wilderness Inspires, and so it's local writers and lit professors and teachers reading their works in response to that exhibition. So come on out. It's going to be a really great Tuesday. Thank you again, Gary. All right. Bye, guys. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Oh, you can say bye again.
Bye.
It's your feature. There it is. There he is.
Take care. Happy holidays.